pop goes the world.
Welcome to The Big Puzzle. In this podcast, we explore the subtle connections between science, religion, politics, economics, and history. One piece at a time, we unveil the big picture of this shared experience that we call life.
So this is my second attempt today. In the previous one, I forgot to turn off the microphone. So yeah, I hope this one works. And I hope that, the first was a dress rehearsal. And now I will explain things a little more organized. So first of all, we have some merchandise, for the channel, the Big Puzzle podcast. And we only have limited stock, only one t-shirt, and it's mine. So, but still merchandise. Thank you, Anna. So today I want to talk about the AI bubble. I think it was yesterday that I was talking to somebody about, the AI bubble and all the problems and everything. And they asked me a question, say, okay, but what will happen when the bubble bursts? And to be honest, I hadn't thought too much about that. So today will be my attempt to connect some pieces of the puzzle together, hopefully, and and see what we can expect. So spoiler alert, it won't look good. It will be really, really bad. The first thing that I think is important to understand is I frame the economy as a discipline that in the short term is a soft science and in the long term is a hard science. What do I mean by that? If you're thinking about the economy, the everyday economy and things that happen in days, weeks and months, probably years, that we will consider short term, there's a lot of distortions because of politics, because of manipulation, things that could be studied mostly from the point of view of sociology or even some pseudosciences like psychology, right? But if you go to the long term, the economy is just basically physics, right? The economy is the science that studies the transformation of energy. And that's thermodynamics, but I would argue, and we can talk a lot about that some other time, that I would argue that the economy is just a subset of thermodynamics. Let's keep that there for now. What else? Well, we need to understand what is a price, right? And why prices are important. So in capitalism, a price is an agreement, right? An agreement between somebody who wants to sell something and somebody who wants to buy it. And they agree on what is the price. So that should be connected to the value that both parts agree that the thing that they're transacting has, right? So the whole idea of capitalism, free markets means that you are not compelled in any way. You go and freely trade, freely discuss with whoever is selling and whoever is buying. They come to that agreement. And that makes sense because, in socialism, prices make no sense, right? Because it's the government who decides how much is going to be produced, how much is going to be consumed. So there's no use of having a price because you can't compare things if you don't have competition, if you can't freely choose how you're going to spend your money or things like that. So capitalism and free markets are the only way that you can use prices to have a common measure of value, right? That everybody pretty much agrees. And obviously those prices go up and down depending on supply, demand, and many other factors, like fashion or any other thing that would make things more desirable, not necessarily the materialistic value. But that leads a big chunk of the economy uncovered. And what do I mean by that? How do you put a price to an idea that will materialize in the future? Because you might believe that the idea is really good and will produce a lot of wealth, or you might think it's a terrible idea and you shouldn't invest on that. So that's where we come with the stock market. So stock market, as you probably know, is where companies go and promote and sell themselves to the public, right? A company could be completely private, and some people will argue that that's real capitalism, right? But at some point they might decide, okay, we just want to open it for anybody to buy our stock, to buy parts of our company, and kind of invest. They believe that we're going to grow, that we're going to be producing wealth, so they're willing to invest in us. And that could be really healthy. I mean, could help companies grow, come up with new ideas, and so on. And since, again, free market, you can sell and buy stocks in different companies, and naturally the ones that have the best ideas are the ones who get more funding, and people are rewarded for doing that. Okay, but that's in an ideal world, because like we say, stock markets are easily manipulated. Those are kind of the short-term economy, right? Obviously you have investors, the most serious investors, they don't take it like short-term, they take the long-term. So they buy stock for companies who've been around for a long time, or you hear about Warren Buffett talking about the way he makes investments. So the idea has to make sense. What they're selling has to be logical, plausible, and they make safe bettings on companies, and that they get rewarded, obviously. But most of the people, they don't think that long, and they want fast rewards. So there's this hedonistic approach to the stock market. And companies could take advantage of that. Actually, they do take advantage. Let me try to silence this. Okay, so because if they can sell you an idea and create hype around that idea, people would invest more and more. And that's what we're seeing with AI. So AI look very impressive. It's a breakthrough for sure. I talk extensively about that, how they figured out language, right? They figured out how to model language. That's why we have the large language models. But they're not intelligent, right? There's no intelligence behind that. And again, watch the other videos to talk about that. So, but they call it AI. So everybody thought, well, the AI has arrived and it's going to revolutionize everything. And not really. So I would compare the LLMs, the impact that LLMs could have with spreadsheets. Spreadsheets are very important. Everybody uses them, have been a great tool for a lot of different things. But they're not going to cure cancer, right? Spreadsheets and large language model, again, they're not going to cure cancer. But companies don't care. They see the opportunity to get a ton of money, and also they see other competitors, taking advantage of that. So that motivates them to, not be left behind. So that creates all this hype that is amplified by people who are trying to sell themselves as the AI experts. Just go to LinkedIn and now everybody's an AI something, and it's ridiculous. They're promising things that are not true and are not going to happen. So in a way, these companies, in the stock market, they create a legal Ponzi scheme, right? So they promise things that they don't exist. People invest. We live in a time that I call the Homo overreactus era. So where we saw that in the pandemic, where people were overreacting all the time. Not only people, but organizations, governments. And if you don't believe it, well, remember about the toilet paper. If that was not an overreaction, I don't know what it is. But we live in that time where everything is amplified. There's echo chambers. There's this acceleration, and that creates fast hype. So on top of that, we have mob mentality. So if you see that everybody around you is investing in AI, you say, well, maybe I'm missing something. Like when you find people running around you and everybody's running, well, you start running, right? Because you don't know what's going on. Well, this is kind of the same thing. There's this idea that Ponzi schemes only work if there's exponential growth. And we talked about exponential growth. And the first stages of AI really looked at like exponential growth. So in a few years, you would see AI everywhere. But as I explained in another video, exponential and sigmoid start the exact same way, right? So they look very similar. And if we reach, the inflection point when it flattens down, well, then you know that there's no exponential growth. And I believe that we're already seeing that. So AI, people who've been using AI, they're stopped using it. So it's already, from the demand part, it's already collapsing. But the problem is that the stock market is not collapsing. And they kind of taking advantage of this oligopoly, because these are basically, people usually talk about 7 companies, but there are another peripheral ones going around. They just, sell things to each other. You probably saw those diagrams, where NVIDIA is selling GPUs to OpenAI, but OpenAI is hiring this and all these fake movements of money around just to create that impression that there is a boom when there's really nothing there. So these people are betting on achieving the real artificial intelligence, but since they already use AI for what we have today, they had to come up with the idea of AGI, so artificial general intelligence. That's basically the AI that was always AI. But now they say, AGI is around the corner, It's not. We're not any closer to AGI today than we were 100 years ago. Could happen? Definitely. Yeah, it would be a breakthrough, but that's serendipitous, right? There's nothing that would indicate, and all the experts agree that LLMs are not going to take us to AGI. I mean, the technology is not there. But they keep selling that, and it happens what I call the Elon Muskification of the economy, where all these CEOs, they just make ridiculous promises, and they don't have a business plan, they don't have any real revenue at all. But the expectation, again, is that this will keep going forever, and it won't. And that is the problem. That's where the bubble, bursts. So what will happen in the short term when the bubble bursts? Well, first of all, there will be a collapse in the stock market, right? Not only these companies, but again, because of the Homo overreactus era, this will spread everywhere, especially in the technology sector. So suddenly all this money that supposedly was existing, all this wealth will suddenly disappear. And well, where will that money come from? Where is it coming from? It was coming from you and from me. Because it's where, you might be investing directly if you're in the stock market, but you might be investing indirectly. So 401ks, any type of investors that they create these baskets. Well, there's a lot of investment in AI because that's where the growth has happened. No growth whatsoever. None of these companies is profitable in AI at all. But this hype, this bubble is attracting a lot. And when that disappears, all your money will disappear, and it will not come back, right? So also people are borrowing money to invest because they believe that they could take some money, invest in this thing, in AI, and the growth, the wealth will be so big, the reward will be so big that they will be easily paying the cost of the debt. What will happen if it doesn't? Well, now you're deep in debt. What if you decided that you would be using the money for the payroll in your small company, invest in AI because it's growing, and then that doesn't happen? Well, your company might be about plumbing, but the bubble will destroy your company as well, even if you're not in the technological sector. So all that is the short term, and it will be bad. But again, stock market is not the full economy. You have the private market, and like I say, could impact and will impact. But you say, well, it's stock market, whatever. People are speculating, and if they lose, they lose, and eventually we always saw that recovering. Yeah, let's hope it will recover fast enough. But now let's talk about the long term. And to talk about the long term, we need to understand, first of all, money and currency. And what's the relationship between money and wealth? So let's do a simplified example. Let's say that you live in a very small country, and the whole wealth of your country is a cow. So you have a cow and you have a country. But you don't have an economy, you just have a cow. That's your wealth. So if you want to have an economy, you would print money, right? And that money that you print has to be equivalent to the wealth that you have, to the cow. So let's say that you print you call your currency dollar for simplicity. So you print a $100 bill. So now you have, your money is worth $100. If you are trustworthy, if you print money in a serious way, well, then that's all you can do. But let's say that your neighbor country, I don't know, they feel pity for you and they give you a second cow. So now your economy has two cows. But only will have $100. So that would mean that each cow would be worth $50. Because with your only bill, you can buy all your wealth, the two cows, right? So basically you're depreciating the wealth in your internal economy, right? Let's not talk about any exchange or anything at all. So what you would do if you don't want to do that, you would print a second $100 bill, right? So now you have $200 bills, two cows, each one will be $100. And if you're again a responsible government, you could do that. You have to keep a balance between the wealth that you have and the money that you have, so they both grow together. What happens if one of your cows die? Well, then you are in trouble, because now you have $200 for only one cow. So suddenly your cow is, the cost of your cow is $200. So that's inflation. Usually inflation doesn't happen because of the reduction in the wealth, but happens because of governments printing more money than the wealth that they have. Right? So that is the usual process, but it's the same thing. So you lost the balance between the wealth and the amount of bills, paper that you printed. This was not always the case, right? It's very difficult. Of course, if your country is 2 cows, well, you can do the math and the calculations and everything, but wealth is difficult to measure, right? So how do you know how much money you should be printing? How much was so? This will be part of the problem. In the past, it was easy because the wealth was not represented by cows, but by gold. Right? So instead of having money, you will have gold. So the gold was what made you wealthy. And why gold? Well, because gold is first it is scarce. So you can't go and create gold. It's very difficult to find, to extract, and everything. So it's being scarce, it gives it more value. Also, it doesn't degrade, it doesn't oxidize, so it can, stay for long without any degradation. You can just measure it by weight because it all weighs the same. So it has a lot of value. What is the problem? Well, the problem is that it's not very convenient to go around taking gold from one place to another. So at some point we have a new institution that is a bank, and in the bank they will tell you, okay, don't carry your gold around, just leave your gold with us, right? So for each piece of gold that you give us, we will give you a paper, that you can redeem at any time. But you can also trade with that paper, and that, if you want to go and buy a TV set, okay, you go and take your IOU note from the bank, and they give you the TV set, and the guy who sold you the TV set goes to the bank and gets the gold. So that was the gold standard. Basically, the wealth of the country was measured by the amount of gold, and it kind of self-balanced. Right? Because if a country doesn't have any wealth, they need to get it from somewhere else. So they will have to use their gold somewhere else. They have to pay other countries to get the thing. So the gold would move around following the wealth, and it's self-balanced. You cannot print gold, right? So, okay, that's kind of a brief history. Unfortunately, the world abandoned the gold standard. In the last few centuries, the Great Britain was the one who dominated the economy in the world, right? But due to World War I and World War II, they had to ask for help, and the help came from the United States. So one of the things that the British had to do at some point is abandon the gold standard, and that created a lot of problems. And they tried to get the discharging. Okay, let's see if we can do it. So they lost that domination of the world, and the United States took over, right? So now you have the United States. We eventually also abandoned the gold standard, but the United States currency, the dollar, became the currency of the world. That puts a burden on the United States. It obviously gives a lot of power to the country, but on the other hand, it creates a responsibility. because United States is the only one who can print dollars. And if they print too many dollars, that would decrease the value of the dollar and decrease the power of the United States. And if they print too little, well, they're losing the opportunity to influence. But think about this. So the United States is involved in trade between Colombia and Australia because they would do their trade in a currency that is not the Australian dollar or the Colombian peso, I guess. That I can't remember what is their currency. So, but they use United States dollar. So that gives both a responsibility and power, strong power, economic power for the world, for the United States. At some point, China considered that they could try to replace the United States and try to make the yuan their currency, the currency for BRICS. And but apparently they realized this is not a good idea. It's too much responsibility. It's way easier for them to mess up with the dollar, with the United States, and try to make it complicated for the United States than for them to put themselves into that situation. Right? So extremely pragmatic, very problematic for the United States. Okay, so what do I want to say with all of this? Well, the first thing is that the long-term effect of the AI bubble bursting will have to do with the loss of wealth. Let's assume that AGI is discovered, all these data centers are built, and everything is working perfectly, but then something catastrophic happens. And we have earthquakes, floods, tornadoes, whatever, but they only affect that infrastructure and those companies. So suddenly those $1 trillion investment, those $1 trillion wealth that it was true, let's assume that yeah, they were right, it happened, but suddenly disappears. Now the United States has a big problem because their wealth has suddenly reduced and they still have this amount of dollars printed. So that will create an inflation that would affect everybody, right? And will be mostly directed in the United States because the United States is where all that infrastructure was built, is where the owners of that wealth that disappeared. The rest of the countries will also have delayed effects because of the loss of value of the dollar. $1 trillion is a lot of dollars. So they will affect definitely the US economy, but also the whole world economy. And but the worst part is that the United States will be losing their economic power on the world. And that's why you see China creating all these fake news, fake discoveries. They're doing quantum computer and they're doing their better model than AI, and it's all fake, right? But they mess up with something that is already complicated, unnecessarily complicated. So I don't know. It doesn't look good. I wish I could have some positive thing to say about all of this. The only thing I can say is let's hope that this bursts as fast as possible. I'm doing what I can by publishing videos like this, by going to LinkedIn and try to expose some of these people who are, just trying to get some petty AI clout, claiming that they have 10 times productivity, and then you have all the CEOs that are clueless. Maybe we should, fire 90% of it. So they're making a mess. So I'm trying to do my part. I would invite you to do yours. So let's make this burst as fast as possible. There's no way to deflate it, unfortunately. But the longest it takes, the worse it will be. Okay, so let's leave it there. This has been long enough. I hope it helped you understand something. If you think I'm wrong, please comment. I would love to be wrong, so please convince me. So that will be it for this one. See you in the next one. Bye.